A guy jumps on a motorcycle and revs the engine to speed off. The bike rushes into the tunnel at a breakneck speed, frantically overtaking countless cars. The goal is to cut off the driver of the yellow car. Unexpectedly, he speeds up, wanting to ram straight ahead. He immediately revs up and rushes onto the wall to ride parallel with him. Just you wait. Even if I die, I'll drag you down to hell with me. How deep must the hatred be to act so crazily? Join Kafiha to watch the movie Manipulated Game, the latest blockbuster from South Korea, featuring the heartthrob Ji Chang-wook. Tae-jung is a gentle and kind delivery guy, hardworking every day from morning until late at night. One night he was talking to a colleague. Suddenly a red Porsche sped up from behind. The girl in the car reached out and knocked away the bag of food in his hand. Look at that, it turns out those two spoiled brats from rich families like to harass people for fun. Just like that, his blood-boiling Tae-jung immediately got on his bike and gave chase. Those two brats were driving extremely recklessly. But Tae-jung is also a truly skilled driver. Moreover, he knows the streets like the back of his hand. He turned into an alley to take a shortcut and intercept them, then even rode onto the sidewalk. Finally, almost catching up to the red Porsche, he revved the engine at full speed, overtook it, and braked it hard to stop right in the middle of the road. "Hey, pay for the order?" The punk was so scared, he had to take out the money and pay Tae-jung. Of course, Tae-jung transferred that money to his colleague, then brought food to his younger brother. Tae-jin had just finished his extra classes. Since their mother passed away, the two brothers have taken care of each other. Tae-jung said he would visit their mother's grave alone tomorrow, while Tae-jin has an upcoming exam, so he must stay home and study hard. Don't waste time going online. After finishing the delivery, Tae-jung carried bags of soil up to his small garden. It turns out he and his girlfriend Susie planned to open a bonsai shop. Few close friends came to help. Then the whole group celebrated together. Because everything is almost finished, Tae-jung took out a bank loan to open the shop, which is why he has to work day and night as a delivery man to pay off the debt. He thought he might have been a bit hasty, that he should have waited until Tae-jin graduated before opening the shop. But Susie found that to be exactly what made him charming. He always dives into work first and worries about the rest later. Tae-jung intended to see her off, but Susie softly said she wanted to stay here tonight. Of course, Tae-jung didn't refuse. The next morning, he woke up early, prepared breakfast for his girlfriend, and then went to take out the trash, including the 3 wolves from last night. Once finished, he hurriedly got on his bike to make deliveries. He left the package at the door and took a careful photo. When he turned back, the elevator had already closed, so he decided to take the stairs to be faster. Unexpectedly, he saw a withered potted plant. He immediately moved it into the shade and left a note for the owner. If this plant is exposed to too much sun, its leaves will wither. At the next delivery point, he kindly helped an old lady at the corner pull her suitcase up the hill until evening. Tae-jung was eating in a hurry when he discovered a phone that someone had dropped. When he answered the call, the girl on the other end said she was the owner of the phone and asked him to bring it to her location. Initially, Tae-jung intended to leave it there for her to pick up herself, but she said she was caring for her sick mother and couldn't leave, and promised to give him 300,000 won as a reward. 300,000. Of course, he had to fly right over there. Tae-jung immediately got on his bike and went to the location she sent. Unbelievable. The place was a deserted stretch right in front of a tunnel. There weren't any houses at all. The girl told him to just leave the phone in the emergency phone box inside the tunnel, and she would come to get it whenever she was free. Tae-jung wanted to hand it over in person, but she said she didn't want strangers coming to her house. Even though this was a bit strange, Tae-jung still did as she said. Inside the phone box, there was an envelope with 300,000 won as a reward. As Tae-jung was about to leave, a truck parked nearby suddenly revved its engine and sped toward him. It almost clipped him. How do you drive like that? You almost killed someone. It's terrifying. The next day, Tae-jung prepared a meal for his mother's memorial. He thought he would be alone today. Unexpectedly, Tae-jin brought a pot of flowers over. Tae-jung didn't scold him. He even let him have his portion of the meal. Later, after Tae-jin had left, it started raining heavily. Tae-jung hurried to bring the flower pots inside. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Before he could open it, the police broke down. The door stormed in and restrained him, arresting Tae-jung. He was arrested on suspicion of rape and murder. At the police station, a swarm of reporters was waiting to catch the news. The media quickly reported on the case. A girl about 20 years old was found dismembered near a tunnel by the Han River. The main suspect has been identified and taken into custody. The police believe the case points toward a premeditated crime, rather than an accidental killing, even though Tae-jung repeatedly stated that he had never met this girl. The police still insisted he raped and murdered her. He thought he would soon be released, so he only worried about the plants at the shop. But looking at the police officer's attitude, it seemed they were 100% sure he was the culprit. They even released his identity to the press. Naturally, his girlfriend was shocked when she read the news. The next day, his close friends asked to visit Tae-jung Tae-jung was very happy to see them, only asking them to help take care of the plants at the shop. Unexpectedly, they said things were chaotic outside. Your personal information has been leaked all over the internet. At Tae-jung's plant shop, extremists sprayed paint on the walls, cursing at him as a murderer who deserved to die. Tae-jung continuously pleaded his innocence, but the scumbag police officer wouldn't listen, demanding he provide an alibi before he would be released. The media analyzed his criminal psychology as if it were facts. Then Susie decided to temporarily close the plant shop to find a lawyer to help Tae-jung. When she visited him, Tae-jung apologized for making things difficult for her. Unexpectedly, Susie showed signs of doubt. Tae-jung choked up, swearing that he truly did not commit the crime. Only then did Susie breathe a sigh of relief, promising to do everything possible to help him. The lawyer said the best way to clear Tae-jung's name is to prove that at the time of the victim's death, he was doing something else. However, the exact time of the victim's death could not be accurately determined. Proving every detail of Tae-jung's entire two-day schedule was nearly impossible. But Susie said Tae-jung worked without rest, so they might be able to find evidence. So the group called around to find Tae-jung's delivery history and went in to ask what else he remembered. Luckily, he had carefully kept his delivery receipts at home. The group split up to visit each location to ask around. Since Tae-jung was naturally kind and gentle, everyone agreed to be a witness. There was only one period without a witness, but they managed to find surveillance video that captured his image. Finally, the group found enough evidence of Tae-jung's entire schedule during those 2 days. Only then did they realize how frantically Tae-jung worked without resting for a single second. The lawyer believed Tae-jung would definitely be exonerated. The group was overjoyed upon hearing this. On the day of the trial, the lawyer presented the evidence of Tae-jung's schedule that they had found. The alibi was very clear. Tae-jung simply had no time to commit the crime. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Unexpectedly, the prosecutor launched a sudden counterattack. Records show that the defendant delivered a package to the victim's residence from the moment he arrived until he left her home. The total time was about 7 minutes. Given that her apartment was only on the 3rd floor, it clearly shouldn't have taken 7 minutes to deliver. Tae-jung recalled that day and explained that he saw a money tree that was withering because it was placed incorrectly, so he moved it into the shade and took the time to add some nutrients and leave a note, which is why it took so long. Next, the prosecutor showed a video of him pulling a suitcase up a hill. Tae-jung explained that an old lady asked for his help, but the camera failed to catch any sign of her. It turns out this suitcase is identical to the one the killer used to dispose of the victim's body, even though no other camera captured him carrying this suitcase. The prosecutor argued that since he was familiar with the streets, he knew the blind spots of the surveillance system. Then the prosecutor asked again, "Why were you holding the victim's phone?" Surveillance footage from a convenience store recorded you holding it in your hand. Tae-jung recounted the story of finding the phone and returning it to its owner. The prosecutor stated, the location where the phone was returned was only dozens of meters away from where the body was disposed of. Yet Tae-jung never actually met the phone's owner. This is truly difficult to explain. The prosecutor then showed the GPS coordinates of the victim's phone, which matched perfectly with Tae-jung's movement route. It was clear he had been carrying it all day, rather than having just found it. Tae-jung was stunned, not knowing how to defend himself anymore. Finally, the prosecutor presented crime scene images. The victim was dismembered in the bathroom of an abandoned house. On another floor within the same building, Susie was shocked to see Tae-jung's matching bracelet at the crime scene. The autopsy revealed the killer's semen inside the victim's body, and the source of that semen was indeed Tae-jung. The prosecutor also asserted that there was no potted plant like the one Tae-jung had mentioned. At this point, Tae-jung had no way left to clear his name. The next day, Susie visited Tae-jung and broke the news that the lawyer had given up. When she asked where his bracelet was, Tae-jung was bewildered, having no idea when he had dropped it. By now, Susie no longer trusted him. Instead, she advised him to plead guilty to get a reduced sentence and told him she couldn't wait forever. Even though Trung swore he was innocent, she still took off her bracelet and returned it to him. At that moment, Tae-jung felt a stabbing pain in his heart, leaving him speechless. A few days later, Tae-jung was sentenced to life imprisonment and taken to the detention center. The policeman even pointed at him and whispered something to the prison boss. What fate awaits the unlucky Tae-jung in prison? It was all like a nightmare. This prison was extremely heavily guarded. Prisoners were hosed down like pigs and even had their mouths frequently inspected for hidden objects. To Tae-jung, this place was nothing short of a living hell. The next day, defense attorney Gong Kim Sang-rak proactively requested to meet Tae-jung. He said bluntly that he wasn't a great lawyer, but something about this case felt wrong. Every other suspect was ruled out from the start, and everything in the indictment was arranged so neatly as if someone had pre-written a script. Tae-jung cried and begged Sang-rak for help. He swore he had never even met the victim. let alone touched her. Sangrak asked T-Trung to recount every single detail. T-Trung suddenly remembered during the trial. They said they found a bracelet at the scene, but he insisted that bracelet wasn't his, because he had never been there. His own bracelet must have been dropped at T-Chin's room on the day he stopped by to take a nap. The lawyer said this detail could open a new lead for the investigation. He asked T-Trung for T-Chin's address, and before leaving, warned him not to tell anyone that they were re-examining the case. On his second day in prison, T-Trung was dragged to the boss Doc Du, while the guards looked away as if seeing nothing. Doc Du threatened to chop off his hand and use it as a soccer ball. He asked if he felt no shame for raping a girl, dismembering her, and throwing her into the river. T-Trung tremblingly said he didn't do it, but no one believed him. Luckily, a guard passed by at that exact moment, allowing him to temporarily escape danger, despite being bullied. T-Trung grit his teeth and endured it all. He placed all his hope in the public defender Kim Sang-rak to help him escape this hell. In this detention center, Doc Su was the boss, nicknamed the principal. He specialized in extorting money from other prisoners. Anyone who didn't pay enough would be beaten severely. During lunchtime, two prisoners sitting at the same table told T-Trung about him. Turns out Doc Su used to be very wealthy, so although he was supposed to serve a life sentence, it was reduced to 12 years. He especially hated criminals who committed rape and murder, because his sister had once been killed that way. For those who came here for that crime, this place would be hell. One of the men said he would help T-Trung, but immediately after he dragged him into the toilet where his accomplices were waiting. It turned out they were sexual predators, and so T-Trung was painfully and brutally assaulted by them. Before he could recover from the pain, T-Trung received more shocking news. Lawyer Sang-rak came to inform him that his younger brother had committed suicide. Everything became too much to bear, causing T-Trung to completely collapse. That night, he decided to join his brother in the exact same way T-Chin had chosen. In his delirium, T-Trung recalled a conversation with T-Chin about how to save a withered plant. Then T-Chin suddenly cried out, "You have brought so many other things back to life, so why do you want to die?" Startled awake, T-Trung found himself with his limbs tied to a hospital bed. They were injecting him with sedatives. It turns out that over the past few days, T-Trung had tried to end his life 3 times already. From then on, T-Trung withdrew into himself like a soulless person. His friends still visited regularly for over a year, but he always refused to see them. That day, T-Trung was taken to a religious service in prison. Seeing him sitting there dazed and spiritless, an altar server named Dong Sik immediately ran over to ask how he was and gave him a sweet cake. T-Trung. He suddenly noticed that the man's wrists were also covered in scars, just like his own wrists. Dong Sik said he had been an altar server in this church for 15 years, but he still couldn't get used to the metal beds, iron doors, fences, high-voltage wires, and the cold concrete slabs they call floors. At first, I was also so pained and angry that I couldn't breathe, but then I had to learn to adapt to survive. Hearing this, T-Trung burst into tears as if for the first time he was truly allowed to cry. Dong Sik advised T-Trung to keep himself busy. He could study or train, do anything possible. No matter how harsh life in here is, it is still a gift from God and must not be wasted. T-Trung listened to him and began studying everything and training his physical strength. He also found a bit of peace in taking care of the plants. Dong Sik said that if he stayed busy like that every day, then those years that seemed unbearable would eventually pass by quietly. The beatings did not decrease at all, only the number of sit-ups, jump ropes, and pull-ups T-Trung did increased day by day. He began training in combat. He even earned a technical certificate, a small piece of evidence that he still existed. Today he managed to block a few hits from those bastards, but immediately after the prison boss went berserk and struck him several more times with the force of a sledgehammer. Even so, it seemed T-Trung's endurance had increased significantly. The seeds he sowed began to sprout, and the number of technical certificates T-Trung earned also grew day by day. With regular encouragement from Dong Sik, T-Trung felt as if he were being given more strength. His punches were now faster, stronger, and most importantly, they no longer trembled. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. A mysterious figure received a phone call requesting a cover-up, and he guaranteed that he would handle it smoothly and cleanly. Inside a closed room, with hundreds of surveillance screens from countless cameras, a prey had fallen into his sights. Back at the prison, T-Trung found a bit of comfort in his small garden. Today he even showed a prison guard named Juan how to take care of a plant that was withering. Nutritional deficiency, due to lack of sunlight. T-Trung said he would help Cho Juan's plant get healthier, just by bringing him a larger pot for replanting. Dong Sik praised T-Trung, calling him a true plant doctor. In prison, everyone boasted about their criminal records, as if they were trophies, but he hoped T-Trung would still keep the goodness within him. T-Trung noticed that his voice sounded strange today. It turned out that today, Dong Sik was being released. He wanted T-Trung to take his place as the altar server. for the priest. When T-Trung asked why he was so kind to him, Dong-sik said he just wanted to make sure that he would keep on living. T-Trung was happy for him, but his heart sank. He knew he would be sad to lose his best friend. As Dong-sik walked out of the gate, T-Trung called out his name and bowed deeply, thanking him for everything. He stood watching for a long time, until his silhouette completely disappeared behind the iron gates. A few days later, a new prisoner was brutally beaten. Looking at him, T-Trung saw himself from 5 years ago. That day, the guard took him to confession, but his story left T-Trung stunned. Shin Yi was also framed with details identical to T-Trung's case: a dropped phone, a woman promising 300,000, one for delivery to a meeting point, security cameras, recording everything, and the video used to convict him. The police even found Shin Yi's belongings and fingerprints at a crime scene he had never stepped foot in. The same lawyer Kim Sang-rok had met him, and the very next day, Shin Yi received news that his mother had committed suicide. He would never believe it, because his mother always said anyone who takes their own life would not be saved. They must have murdered her. T-Trung was reeling after hearing this, and stayed awake all through that night. The next morning, Shin Yi was found dead in his cell, his mouth stuffed with pages from the Bible, unable to bear it any longer. T-Trung pretended to have new exculpatory evidence, and requested to meet with his lawyer, Kim Sang-rok. When T-Trung asked about Shin Yi's case, and whether he was truly helping him, Sang-rok was evasive and indirect. Realizing there was no new evidence, his tone turned ice cold. T-Trung lunged forward and grabbed his throat. "Who killed my brother?" Sang-rok stood up with a sneer. "Even if it was all a trap, there is nothing you can do. Your brother died because of you. It was you who killed him." "That's right, I killed him." "I swear to God, one day I will kill you." "From inside this prison." "Ha! Why don't you write a suicide note and check out yourself? Who knows, maybe then your case will be reinvestigated." Leaving the detention center, Sang-rok immediately called the boss. "There is a mistake that needs to be cleaned up immediately." That night, T-Trung asked to meet with the priest. He said he could no longer continue as an altar server. When the priest asked why, T-Trung replied with the words Dong-sik once said, "I must think of myself as already dead, and these remaining days are a gift from God." And deep in his heart, he saw that gift as an opportunity to avenge his brother. He clenched his hand and pulled a screw out of the wooden surface. Blood dripped down drop by drop, but compared to the pain in his heart, that wound was nothing. At an auction, statue number 73 by the sculptor Aisley was being bid up to 2.7 billion. At this point, only two people remained in the pursuit. One was Chairman Shin Myung-ho. The other was a mysterious online bidder, number 56. In fact, number 56 kept raising the price. While Chairman Shin's face was tight with tension, yet he still tried to keep up, until the price reached 4 billion. When he had to ask for a pause to think, he called someone and asked, "Can we provide something else with clear value?" It turned out that the person he was calling was also the mysterious online bidder number 56. He shot back a question, asking how much his son's life was worth to him, and insisted that he provide the Exley statue, otherwise he would refuse the commission. Chairman Shin was forced to return to the auction and raise the bid to 4 billion. After that, number 56 bid up to 4.5 billion, then 5.5 billion. Mr. Shin's face turned dark as if he were about to have a stroke. But then he grit his teeth and raised the price to 6 billion. Seeing that he was on the verge of collapsing, number 56 chuckled and decided to stop at 6 billion, even for a wealthy chairman. That was no small sum of money. It turned out that guest number 56 was actually An Johan, a man who specialized in laundering crimes for the rich by framing others for their actions. That same day, statue number 73 was delivered to Johan. His house was filled with countless statues just like it. He called Chairman Shin to inform him that the man who went to prison for his son was dead, apparently from trying to stuff a Bible into his own mouth. Now his son's record was completely clean. Besides his crime-clearing services, Johan was also the CEO of a construction company. The lawyer Sang-rok called Johan to report that the statue was broken. If it's broken, then it must be cleaned up. Johan then called his doctor henchman to give an order. At that moment, the doctor had just finished disposing of a body. Meanwhile, Doksu's gang wanted to beat up T-Trung again, but this time he said he didn't feel like it. Doksu burst out laughing, ordering T-Trung to act as a punching bag for the fat guy to practice on. Unexpectedly, he wasn't as submissive as before, but fought back instead, continuously giving them a taste of their own medicine. One guy caught T-Trung off guard with a sneak attack, causing him to bleed profusely. Enraged, he hammered the guy's head repeatedly, then knocked out one more, then another. Leaving the gang leader stunned and speechless, T-Trung simply warned, "Don't mess with me again." Eunbi Dong-sik's daughter came to her father's electronics shop. Without even bothering to say hello, she pulled out a cigarette and started puffing away, indifferently pocketing money from his shirt, then rummaging to take the money he hid under a plant pot. She even mocked him when she saw a photo of him taken with T-Trung in the detention center. "Do you think praying in prison gets you forgiveness?" Dong-sik was helpless against his rebellious daughter, only asking for a little money back to buy kimbap. Just as he hid the money, the priest walked in. It turned out the priest came to inform him that Trung had returned the Bible to him. Meanwhile, Doksu was still bitter about being confronted by Trung. Accidentally, overhearing a guy gossiping about that embarrassing incident, he flew into a rage and beat him up, mercilessly. Then a man covered in tattoos appeared and provoked Doksu. It turned out he used to be in this prison, and was also a tough guy, who used to clash with Doksu. Just then the guard arrived, so the group dispersed. The guard told Doksu to go see the warden. The warden was urging Doksu to organize a fighting ring, so he could make money from betting. The warden knew Doksu wanted to get Trung, so he told him to stop. This time was too sensitive, because someone had just committed suicide. If another person died, he would be reprimanded. In exchange for Doksu's patience, he sent 2 wealthy white-collar criminals into Doksu's cell, giving him free rein to extort them. Dong-sik came to visit Trung and asked if anything was wrong, fearing he might be thinking of doing something reckless. Trung insisted he was fine, but I've been in here looking at plants for long enough. Now I want to see something else. Uncle, I'm not a criminal, I'm going to get out of here. Meanwhile, despite promising the warden to be patient, behind his back, Doksu ordered his subordinates to take out Trung. That night, Trung planned his prison break. First, he needed civilian clothes to hide in. Next were the keys. The guard shift change was at 03:30. That was when he needed to take action. Sector B had a door leading outside. To reach Sector B without being detected, the only way was through the ventilation shafts. Visiting hours end at exactly 400 p.m., which is also when the food delivery truck arrives, so I must get out before then. Doksu's henchman was reassigned to the same cell as Trung. At midnight, thinking he was fast asleep, he pulled out a knife intending to finish him off cleanly, but Trung was already waiting for him. Actually, this guy was only good at sneak attacks, and was no match for him. It was just that he had a weapon, which made it a bit more difficult for Trung. The next morning, Trung calmly walked out for roll call, without a single scratch on his body. Doksu was seething with rage. His eyes looked like they wanted to tear him into 100 pieces. Trung knew that to move forward, he had to eliminate this obstacle first. During lunchtime, he intentionally sat at the same table as Scarface to provoke him, until the man flew into a rage and hit him repeatedly. But Trung did not fight back at all. When the guards appeared, Trung knew he had successfully dealt with the barrier. The next day, Johuan stopped by the garden to announce that Doksu had been sent to solitary confinement. He gave Trung the green floral foam that he had asked for. It turned out that Trung had lied about needing it to decorate the chapel, but in reality he was using it for another purpose. Today Trung took care of a prisoner who was assigned to cleaning duties in Sector B, and then volunteered to take his place, easily obtaining the gate keys for Sector B. Afterward, he made an impression of the key in the foam hidden in the plant pot. At the same time, the Ministry of Justice sent doctors to vaccinate the prisoners. It was none other than the doctor henchman of Johan. He scanned the list and stopped at Trung's ID number, then quietly set aside a vial and put it in his pocket. After lunch, everyone was called out for vaccinations, while Trung volunteered to help a guard fix his car. This was the perfect opportunity for him to cut the key. At that moment, the guard returned earlier than expected, bringing him a cake as a thank you. Seeing Trung hunched over, he stepped closer to check. He managed to pretend he was replacing a spark plug, so the guard didn't suspect a thing. However, he still carefully demanded a standard body search. Fortunately, Trung had quickly stuffed the key into the bag of cake. On his way back, he was blocked by Kang Jae's gang. It turned out Kang Jae wanted to recruit him into his gang, because in this prison only Trung dared to stand up to Scarface. Unexpectedly, Trung flatly refused. Kang Jae felt a bit embarrassed, but still told him to think it over more. In truth, Trung was solely focused on his prison break, and had no interest in gang affiliations. Dong-sik told him that his plan to escape was impossible. To get out, one must pass through 3 gates guarded by towers and armed correctional officers. It isn't as simple as just climbing over a few walls, but Trung didn't intend to climb any walls at all, but rather walk out through the main gate. Returning to his cell, he found the warden waiting. The man said there was a big match tomorrow, and he had bet all his money on him. Fearing the vaccine might affect his stamina, the warden had sent someone else to take the shot in his place. Hearing Trung's ID number, the doctor took the special vial from his pocket. But seeing the face, he realized it didn't match. The next day at exactly 3 o'clock, the warden came to tell Trung to get in the ring, with no other choice. He made quick work of it, landing 3 punches that knocked his opponent flat. Then he returned to his cell to start the plan. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw the doctor and Johuan waiting for him. "Trung, it's your turn for the shot." It was now 03:27. His heart was racing with anxiety. The doctor pulled out the specific vial he had prepared and injected it directly into his arm. The doctor injected the vaccine into T-Trung's arm, but in reality it was poison. T-Trung only anxiously checked his watch, because there was only half an hour left until his meeting with Uncle Dong-sik. Once the doctor left, T-Trung quietly tucked the bolt and the key into his pocket. First, he used the bolt to short-circuit the electrical system of the security cameras. While the officer ran off to check, he slipped in and stole an access card, pretending to go clean up. He easily bypassed the prison guard. Next, he went into the storage room to change into civilian clothes, then put the prison uniform back on over them. Reaching the gate leading to Sector B, he was nearly caught by a guard, having to crawl into a storage room to hide. Luckily, he performed a sloppy check and didn't discover him. Before he could even catch his breath, the poison began to set in. Tae-Trung suddenly felt dizzy and his vision blurred, but time was running out, so he struggled to get up and keep going. Outside, Uncle Rong-shich stood waiting, with a heart burning like fire, not knowing if Tae-Trung was telling the truth or joking, worried whether he would come out or not. To bypass the guard, Tae-Trung chose the ventilation duct leading to Sector B. He took off his prisoner clothes and climbed into the ventilation duct, but the noise while moving caught the warden's attention. Luckily, he thought it was a rat, so he just poked it a few times and stopped. Prison guard Cho-hwan was on his way home from work when he met Uncle Rong-sik. Recognizing an acquaintance, he stopped to chat. Rong-sik had to lie that he was visiting family, but visiting hours were over. Cho-hwan enthusiastically offered to lead him in, but Rong-sik refused, saying he would come back tomorrow. Tae-Trung had reached Sector B, but his head felt more and more lightheaded. His vision blurred and his heart pounded rapidly. Yet he still tried to drag his feet toward the civil service room, where he was supposed to meet Uncle Rong-sik. Only 3 minutes left before closing. As soon as he sat down, he gently punctured the food bag of a prisoner's relative, causing belongings to scatter and everyone to panic. Stooping down to pick them up, taking advantage of the chaos, Tae-Trung slipped through the main door outside. But right at that moment, the poison took effect, causing Tae-Trung to faint on the spot. At the same time, Johan was sluggishly watching the race. The F1 trial on the giant screen. He yawned and called the person in charge, asking if they could scatter banana peels so the cars would crash and burst into flames for fun. The other man thought he was joking. Unexpectedly, he said with a serious face, "I'm not joking." At that moment, the race ended. The team Johan sponsored came in first. Even setting a new record, one would think Johan was satisfied. But this madman was bored. What's the fun in winning without an accident? The person in charge said honestly that it was dangerous for the drivers' lives. Then as for the sponsors, I'm not interested in those who only know how to drive safely. Returning home, he was engrossed in building a giant Lego model. Johan's nanny came in and asked what fun game he was playing. He then whispered something in her ear, and then they both burst out laughing. Johan ordered her to create a list of clients related to the Ministry of Justice. The very next day, a Ministry of Justice vehicle with the director of the Corrections Bureau personally escorting Johan to the prison. The white-haired director warned the prison warden that no matter what instructions Johan gave, they must be carried out. Johan said he wasn't close to the director, but only knew the person who had appointed him. Moreover, Johan knew the prison warden's weakness. He had used public funds to invest in cryptocurrency and got scammed. Then he proposed a plan for environmental volunteer activities at the abandoned factory and tossed a bag of gold bars in front of him, each bar worth 200,000 won, and promised 5 more bags if everything went smoothly. His request was very clear, letting the prisoners go out for community service. The chosen prisoners must be violent criminals, guilty of murder and robbery. If there weren't enough, he could pick anyone who annoyed him. Without much thought, the warden agreed immediately. Johan sat in front of the surveillance monitor, reviewing the footage. Each scene appeared clearly. Tae-Trung short-circuiting the cameras, stealing access cards and slipping through hallways like a ghost, feeling uneasy. Johan climbed into the ventilation duct, tracing every segment exactly along the route Tae-Trung had taken. In the end, he could only sigh with a touch of admiration. He just walked proudly right through the main gate. But Tae-Trung's escape plan failed. He was discovered by a priest and taken to the infirmary. The doctor announced that Tae-Trung's blood contained a large amount of rat poison. Luckily, the vitamin K3 he had taken earlier incidentally became the antidote, saving him from the brink of death. Despite this, Tae-Trung continued to vomit repeatedly. His body was completely exhausted. Jo-hwan visited Tae-Trung, pretending to know nothing and just mentioning casually that rumors were spreading throughout the prison. Some said Tae-Trung intended to escape. Others said he fainted, passed out from accidentally ingesting rat poison. But Jo-hwan guessed someone wanted to harm Tae-Trung, since he wasn't the type of person to poison himself. Hwan admitted that Tae-Trung's escape plan through the main gate was very bold, and it was indeed the weakest point in the whole system. He said he would wait until Tae-Trung fully recovered before investigating. Before leaving, Tae-trung asked Jo-hwan to pass a message to Uncle Rong-shich, thanking him for saving his life once again. The next day when Jo-hwan delivered the message, Uncle Rong-shich was bewildered, not understanding what Tae-trung meant. The prisoners were buzzing, not understanding why. Tae-trung had both tried to escape and ingested rat poison, but everyone had to admit Trung was no ordinary man. The warden ordered Dak-soo's release from solitary confinement. Clearly, this guy had just been added to the list of participants for Jo-han's community project. As soon as he was out, Dak-soo led his lackeys to find Tae-trung. Without warning, he ordered them to rush in and stab him repeatedly. But under the blanket were only some boxes. Tae-trung had managed to hide in the ceiling in time. He jumped down, took down 2 men and restrained the bald one. But the poison in his body made his vision blur. The rest took the opportunity to rush in and stab him repeatedly. Tae-trung tried to hold his ground, but took another knife wound to the shoulder. Meanwhile, in a closed meeting room, the prison warden announced the project: to take prisoners outside for community activities. Then he tossed a pile of cash onto the table, declaring that anyone who participated would get 5 stacks, with more once the job was done. A guard was the first to grab some. The rest followed suit, snatching their own shares. By then, Cho-hwan had discovered something unusual at the infirmary, but Dak-soo's lackeys blocked him outside, ready to take him out even if it meant a longer prison sentence. Cho-hwan had to leave and issued an emergency alert, requesting the rapid response team to head to Building A4 immediately. Inside, Tae-trung was still fighting Dak-soo's gang alone. The poison was taking effect, making him gradually lose his strength. But he still fought with all his survival instincts. Finally, Tae-trung managed to take down the low-level thugs. Only the boss Dak-soo remained full of energy, taking advantage of a moment when he was off guard. He delivered a deep, straight stab. By now, Cho-hwan and the guard team had arrived outside, but were blocked in the door by the lackeys. After a period of struggling, Dak-soo pinned Tae-trung to the floor, clutching the knife ready to deliver the final blow. But just then Tae-trung sprang up, seized the knife, and turned the tables. Dak-soo urged him, "Stab me in the neck. Do it." But in the end, Tae-trung only lightly sliced off a piece of his ear. It was only then that the guard team swarmed into the room, leaving Tae-trung covered in wounds. Weeks later, in a trance, Tae-trung met his brother again. Tae-chien warned him to be careful. "It's very dangerous out there." Tae-trung swore to find those who harmed his brother and make them pay. But before he could finish his sentence, 2 guards pulled a sack over his head and dragged him away. Dak-soo suffered the same fate. The entire prison was in absolute chaos. Anyone who resisted was beaten mercilessly with batons. A total of 12 people were locked in a truck, completely sealed and driven away in the night. On that list were both Trung and the gang leader Dak-soo, a man who had even raped his own biological sister. The next morning, the prisoners, dressed in white-numbered uniforms, stepped into an abandoned factory, surrounded by dozens of masked gunmen standing in wait. Drones buzzed overhead like devil eyes. No one understood what was happening until Johan appeared from above, declaring with great delight, "From this moment your time begins. Welcome to the land of opportunity." 5 years ago, a young master named Bendo went out with a girl. Then they both went back to her house to continue drinking. If it had only been that, nothing would have happened. But this guy took out some stuff to play with, and in his high state, he accidentally killed her. When he sobered up a bit, he called for help from his father, a congressman. Johan's investment company had just won the bid for the project to build the National Data Center. At the announcement party, several officials whispered that this deal reeked of money because this unknown company wasn't even on the bidding list. Johan, standing nearby, heard everything. Immediately warned the 3 men not to underestimate his company. "We can easily obtain detailed information about all of you." He then revealed that he was the sole owner of the entire company and insulted the 3 men as mere flies, only capable of eating his leftovers. The man sitting in the middle turned purple with rage, threatening to teach him a lesson. Little did he know that Johan had targeted him for daring to point a finger at him. Immediately after the party, as the man was preparing to leave, his path was blocked by a car. The killer doctor appeared like a ghost and cut off his index finger. Johan brought the finger home and attached it to one of his horrific statues, appearing very satisfied to have completed the artwork. A perverted madman is already dangerous, but he is even more terrifying when he has both money and power. Just then, Congressman Beck called, asking him to help his son escape a murder charge. Johan said this service was free of charge, but requested that the congressman buy him a piece of art instead. He simply told him to have his son soak the body in warm water, and he would take care of the rest. As soon as he hung up, Johan ordered his henchmen to go and erase the evidence at the scene, the 3D scanner case. Cutting-edge technology sent images of the scene back to the control room. Johan began analyzing the situation. Gung had dragged the girl's body into the bathroom to soak in warm water. According to him, this would make it impossible for the police to determine the exact time of death. Johan began scanning through countless surveillance monitors. to search for a scapegoat, and the unlucky Tae Trung was the one he chose, simply because he frequently delivered goods to this building. That night, while Tae Trung was out for a delivery, a man on a motorcycle silently followed him. His every move was transmitted back to Johan, always busy. He had a younger brother with a special love for plants. From those facts, Johan devised a plan to frame him. The next morning, as soon as Tae Trung got in his vehicle for work, a man carrying the victim's phone followed him to fabricate GPS evidence. Another team immediately broke into his house. There they collected his fingerprints, installed surveillance cameras, and took his old shoes. They manufactured gloves with his fingerprints, then used them to create fake traces at the crime scene. Afterward, they wore his shoes to fake bloody footprints. That night, seeing his girlfriend staying with Tae Trung, Johan was overjoyed at his luck. The next day, they obtained his semen from a condom in the trash bag, then injected it into the body of the girl. Later, Johan discovered that Tae Trung had lost his bracelet. He immediately sent henchmen to find an identical one and placed it at the scene. The doctor dismembered the body, put it in a suitcase, and set a trap for Tae Trung so that the camera would capture him pulling it up the slope. It was also Johan who ordered his lackeys to place a withered plant on the stairs to make Tae Trung stop for a while, rendering his alibi incomplete. An incredibly detailed and meticulous plan. Ultimately, Tae Trung could not escape that perfect trap. Back to the present. The previous night, the vehicle carrying the 12 prisoners arrived at the abandoned factory. The soldiers pushed them off the truck and led them into a room. When the hoods were removed, a banquet table was set before them. Extremely grand. The prisoners, who were already starving, didn't think twice and rushed in to feast. Only Kang Che spotted Johan observing them from above. But before he could go up to meet him, he was blocked by the guards. After finishing the meal, each person was assigned a numbered room to rest. They were all confused, not knowing what was waiting for them ahead. That night, Tae Trung quietly sneaked out to find an escape route. Outside, the guards were still keeping a very close watch. After winding around to avoid detection, Tae Trung managed to find an exit. But just as he was about to escape, 3 gunshots rang out, followed by numerous red dots appearing on his body, forcing Tae Trung to raise his hands in surrender and turn back. Johan told him to get in the car so he could drive him back to his room. But Tae Trung turned around and walked straight away. Johan didn't get angry, but was instead amused by his despair. Hearing this tone, Tae Trung guessed that he was the one who brought them here. Johan revealed there would be a competition. The winner would win a special prize, but he didn't say what it was, seeing how they guarded this place. Tae Trung was forced to give up his intention to flee. His roommate came in and spoke to him, as if they were very close. He claimed to be on his side, after seeing how tough he was, and begged and urged him to go somewhere with him, swearing he wouldn't harm him. Who would have thought he'd take him to the boss, Doc Soo? This scarred-faced guy was quite lucky. His ear hadn't fallen off completely and had been sewn back by a doctor. Knowing this man hated him to the core, Tae Trung smashed a beer bottle ready to risk his life. Just then 2 gunshots rang out. The guards issued a warning, forcing both sides to stop. The next morning, loud music blared, startling all the prisoners awake. They all had to put on uniforms and taken to an empty lot. As soon as the music stopped, Johan announced that their time starts now. This is the racetrack. Each person will drive a car, randomly assigned, and race against each other. Other than that, there are no rules. Number 11 shouted, "What kind of damn game is this? Are you raising us like cattle for your entertainment? You're way too delusional about your power." Unexpectedly, as soon as 11 turned to walk away, Johan coldly opened fire and eliminated him on the spot. This brutal intimidation left the prisoners stunned. No one dared to resist anymore. A truck approached. Inside was a mountain of cash. 5 billion won will be the prize for the first-place winner. The massive amount of money made the prisoners' eyes sparkle. Johan continued to announce that the number on each uniform matches the garage that they were assigned to work at. Their cars will be ready inside. He even gave everyone a chance to meet him in person once, if they had any questions. Not long after, the wealthy young heir Beck, Do-gung, and another man arrived at the track. They called the unlucky people forced to take the fall, for them, scapegoats. The other guy's scapegoat was the prisoner, who checked out by swallowing a page of the Bible. Do-gung bragged about having 3 scapegoats, meaning this bastard had caused 3 deaths, and one of those 3 unlucky scapegoats was Tae Trung. So it turns out, these 2 were invited by Johan to watch the race together. He revealed this wasn't a simple race, but more like a dogfight. It would be the most fun thing they'd see. In many years, by now the prisoners had reached their garages, matching their numbers to pick up their cars. Scar Face was ready to cry when he received a rusty, old clunker. Kang Che was satisfied with a good one, while Chi-dong was insanely happy when seeing a badass sports car. Tae Trung didn't know yet if his car was good or not. Johan explained that those without a good car weren't necessarily at a disadvantage. The only rule is that there are no rules. The prisoners were allowed to do anything to win. Each person and each group began to utilize spare parts in the garage to mod their cars. It turns out Johan wanted to use this race to attract those obsessed with betting on the dark web, and would even organize more races in the future and expand internationally. And the three of them would be the co-founders of this company. But what about that massive prize money? He smirked and revealed that no one would ever reach the finish line. The next morning, Chi-dong approached Tae-trung, proposing they team up and form an alliance. Everyone has already paired up. Playing solo will only lead to failure. If we win 5 billion, I only need an apartment. You can have the rest. Not interested. Give it to your grandmother. Hearing that, Chi-dong was overjoyed, assuming they were on the same side. Plus, he hit the jackpot because Tae-trung even had an auto repair license. In another corner, Kang-che told his subordinates that no matter who wins, the prize money must be split equally, and everyone must strictly follow his orders. Right after that, Kang-che went to see Johan. The moment he met the boss, he immediately started using flattering words, proposing a long-term partnership. He knew well that the scale of this was not small, and realized Johan was the one truly in charge, to the point that even the warden had to bow his head. He affirmed his desire for a long-term collaboration, and was ready to become a useful toy for Johan. Johan saw through Kang-che, noting his 18 prior convictions for fraud, indeed a skilled flatterer, but still said he would think about the offer. The second meeting with Doksu was far more dramatic. The scarred guy didn't care about the prize money, only wants to kill a certain bastard with his own hands. Johan was delighted to hear that. In this game, just do whatever you want. Doksu remarked that the boss was much more fun than the prison warden, who was a coward. Meanwhile, for Johan, the most important thing isn't who wins, but that the game must be truly exciting. Back at the garage, Chi-dong excitedly showed off to Tae-trung his sports car. Unexpectedly, Trung checked it and said the car was junk. It seems it only looks good on the outside. In another room, number 4 aggressively wielded a chainsaw to threaten number 6, forcing him to hand over the keys and blatantly stealing the car. Just then, the tattooed Kang-che walked by, witnessing the robbery in broad daylight. He immediately realized there were no rules here. He had just thought of taking the fat guy's SUV. Number 3, when his subordinate ran over to report that number 10 had a sports car. Hearing that, Kang-che immediately changed course, leading the whole gang to steal Chi-dong's car. At that moment, hearing the screams and the sound of things being smashed, Chi-dong rushed out and saw the chaotic scene of car robberies. Just as he turned around, he saw Kang-che's gang charging straight toward him. Chi-dong ran back to tell Tae-trung and stood blocking the door, but Tae-trung managed to get in the car and told Chi-dong to hop in. The car shot out like an arrow, hitting Kang-che onto the hood. As they zoomed past Doksu, Chi-dong even gave him the middle finger to taunt him. Seeing his prey, Tae-trung, the old man, jumped in his car to give chase, not to be outdone. Kang-che also jumped into car number 5, revving the engine to follow closely. Unexpectedly, right after exiting the gate, he was blocked by the car of number 4 Doksu's subordinate. Kang-che gritted his teeth, rammed straight through, and continued to speed away, determined not to lose Tae-trung's trail. At this point, Doksu's car was right on Tae-trung's tail. Chi-dong panicked and screamed, urging Tae-trung to step on the gas harder. From high above, Johan and Do-gung were watching the chase with great interest. Seeing that he couldn't escape Doksu's car, Tae-trung suddenly swerved and slammed on the brakes, causing Doksu's car lost his momentum. Then he turned around and sped away at breakneck speed. It seemed like he had escaped, but suddenly Doksu rammed directly into the side of his car. The car spun several times before coming to a halt. Smoke billowed out before they could recover from the shock. Doksu backed his car up, preparing to charge in for the killing blow. Unluckily, Tae-trung's car had stalled at that moment. At the critical moment when his life hung by a thread, suddenly Kang-che's car rushed in to block and took the full force of the powerful collision. Thanks to that, Tae-trung escaped death by a hair's breadth. Just then, the guards fired warning shots. In the control room, Do-gung clapped with delight, but Johan only smirked, saying the main event must be even more fun. Then he ordered the game to stop, because injured players cannot race. The problem now was that Chi-dong's sports car was heavily damaged. After struggling for a while, the engine finally started after pushing, but after running for just a few meters, the car suddenly exploded and burst into fierce flames. The smoke and fire terrified both of them. At this very moment, Tae-trung saw a steep slope leading outside, without knowing where it would lead. The next day, Tae-trung went to see the boss, Johan. Actually, he had nothing to exchange. He just wanted to observe the panorama of this abandoned factory. When the boss asked why he wanted to meet, Tae-trung just shrugged and said it was out of curiosity. He guessed that his real purpose wasn't to organize racing, because everyone's cars were different, and there were no rules. The terrain was also unsuitable. So what exactly are you doing this for? Because it's just fun. Johan asked him what he needed. Tae-trung casually said he needed vitamins. Johan was slightly surprised, but still ordered someone to bring a box of vitamin C. Tae-trung didn't take them but just pointed at a withered potted plant. It needs this more. Then he returned to room 9 and started modifying his car, carrying back a bunch of parts from Chi-dong's broken car. He worked hard welding all night long. Today is the day the official race takes place. Kang-che was still determined to take down Tae-trung. His subordinate wondered why. He replied that even with a trash car, that guy could still come in first. Just then the boss called Kang-che, announcing that he accepted the partnership offer, and even left him a special gift in the back seat. If the match gets boring, make it interesting, will you? Kang, he affirmed he would be Johan's loyal servant. But the moment he hung up, he muttered curses at him. The official race began. One by one, the racers moved their cars to the starting line. Kang-che observed closely and commented that Doc Su's modified car looked as ugly as a dog, exactly like his face. On the contrary, he praised Tae-trung for putting real heart into his modification. On the stands, Johan was also ready to live stream the race to the bettors right before the start. The fat guy number 12 even took the chance to steal another guy's car. The loudspeaker announced the rules. The race has no rules. The prize goes to whoever crosses the finish line first, after 20 laps, before even starting. Kang-che ordered his men to take down Tae-trung first. As soon as the light signaled, the racers charged forward frantically. Only car number 11 kept skidding off the track. Meanwhile, car number 2 took the lead thanks to a turbo engine. While number 2 was gloating, the engine suddenly exploded. Then the brakes failed and it crashed straight into the barrier. On the stands, 2 young masters cheered with excitement. It turned out Do-gung had bet on Tae-trung's car number 9, while the other bet on the scarred Doc-su's car number 6. At the same time, Johan was looking through Tae-trung's file and suddenly remembered he was the plant-loving delivery man he had once framed. Immediately, he ordered Kang-che to destroy Tae-trung's car, number 9, Kang-che's car. Number 5 charged forward furiously, pressing close to number 9. Number 9 reacted extremely fast, accelerating and making a sharp turn to shake off number 5. The young masters were beyond thrilled. By now, Doc-su's number 6 had caught up. Both number 4 and number 6 rushed forward to sandwich number 9 and crush it. Doc-su grabbed a knife intending to finish off Tae-trung, but unexpectedly the driver wasn't Tae-trung, but Chi-dong instead. While Tae-trung was driving car number 11, which had already veered off the track. When the flycam located car number 11, no one was found inside. Tae-trung sped out on an old motorcycle and smashed the flycam. Do-gung claimed this was cheating, but Johan found it extremely interesting. Tae-trung didn't run away, but headed straight toward Doc-su. Scarface also went into a rage and charged forward. At the same time, Kang-che's car number 5 also rushed in. Both attacked simultaneously. To everyone's surprise, Tae-trung jumped over both of them like a scene from an action movie. Doc-su immediately got in his car to pursue. Now both Doc-su and Kang-che were chasing after Tae-trung's motorcycle. At this point, Johan reminded Kang-che to use his gift. It turned out to be a handgun. Oh my god, it's just like a Hollywood movie. But Tae-trung quickly veered into a workshop, easily shaking both of them off. Johan gave directions to Kang-che, urging him to act quickly. Suddenly, Tae-trung stopped, tied a gas cylinder to the back of his bike and sped off. Kang-che chased after him, firing repeatedly, but Tae-trung swerved like a snake, dodging every bullet. The audience was extremely thrilled, witnessing a real-life gunfight. In a flash, Tae-trung dodged to the side, letting the gas cylinder smash Kang-che's tire, causing the car to overturn while chasing right behind him. Fortunately, he braked in time to let it fly over his head within an inch. Do-gung cheered like crazy with excitement. To make the game more intense, Johan decided to change the rules. Whoever catches the motorcycle wins regardless of whether they are dead or alive. As long as the motorcycle is caught, the prize money will be doubled. So now Tae-trung is worth 10 billion. The racers frantically searched for him, including the scarred Doc-su. Before he could escape, Tae-trung was rammed directly by Doc-su's car, causing him to tumble over. He pulled out a knife and stabbed him twice. But Tae-trung remained resilient, pinned him down and held the knife to his throat. While they were struggling, another car charged straight at him. Number 8 jumped out to grab Tae-trung but was immediately stabbed and taken down by Doc-su. Tae-trung then kicked Doc-su away. As both were staggering, car number 8 rushed in and sent Doc-su flying. Tae-trung managed to dodge, but was immediately hit by car number 1 right after. Number 4 charged in to capture him but was beaten down by him. Taking advantage of Doc-su's dazed state, Tae-trung delivered an extra kick to his head. Now there was no one left hunting Tae-trung. Furious, Johan pulled out a sniper rifle, then stepped out and aimed directly at Tae-trung. Below, number 4, who was strangling Tae-trung, suddenly had his head blown off by Johan. Now Johan wanted to finish Tae-trung with his own hands. Tae-trung was injured, but kept rolling to avoid the bullets. Seizing the moment while Johan was reloading, he jumped on his motorcycle and sped away. But then car number 7 started chasing him. Tae-trung had to hide from number 7. While simultaneously dodging Johan's gunfire, Johan intended to shoot a steel beam so it would fall on Tae-trung's head. Luckily, he dodged it and car number 7 took the full hit instead. At that moment, Tae-trung stopped abruptly. The flycam flew to the front and captured his face directly. Only then did Johan realize Tae-trung's true target. It was the long slope leading outside. It turned out that yesterday, Tae-trung purposefully met him to observe where this path led. But now the two cars that collided were blocking the slope. Tae-trung sent the gas cylinder flying into the two cars, causing them to explode and get thrown aside. Ahead was a massive fire, but Tae-trung risked it all, revving the engine and charging through the curtain of flames, rushing at full speed up the runway. Just as Tae-trung soared off the slope, Johan aimed straight at him and pulled the trigger. Luckily, the bullet only grazed Tae-trung's arm. He fell into the river and didn't manage to swim to shore until nightfall. He sneaked into a house and swiped a set of clothes to change into. Then he ran like mad, head down, not daring to stop. By the time he reached the city, a heavy rain began to pour. Tae-trung used every last bit of strength to crawl to Uncle Ryong-sik's electronics shop. When the uncle opened the door, it was also the moment he fainted from exhaustion. He immediately helped him to bed and carefully bandaged the wounds. Meanwhile, Johan was furious because he let his prey escape. The prison director was worried. Not knowing how to report to his superiors, Johan told him to just say the prisoners died in a gas accident. Regarding the escaped prisoner Tae-trung, he ordered, the man must absolutely not reveal anything to the media. The next morning, Tae-trung had a nightmare and woke up with a start. Uncle Ryong-sik was very glad to see he was okay. The uncle said he had tried to visit him many times, but they wouldn't let him in, so he was very worried. He didn't know what Tae-trung planned to do, but told him to stay here for now. If he happened to be discovered, the uncle would just claim he was being threatened by him. A few days later, Tae-trung visited his brother's grave. Then he tracked down the address of lawyer Kim Sang-rak. That night, he ambushed him at the bottom of Sang-rak's apartment building, then silently followed him up the stairs. Sang-rak realized he was being followed. He immediately changed direction and called the assassin for help. The steady sound of footsteps still echoed behind him, causing Sang-rak to run for his life in a panic. Just when he thought he had escaped, Tae-trung revealed himself. He kicked him into the room and delivered 2 more blows. Despite getting a brutal beating, Sang-rak still didn't dare to reveal the person behind it all. Tae-trung searched his briefcase and discovered the profile of a girl named So-jung, suffering from the painful beating. Sang-rak finally confessed she was the next victim. They would soon sculpt her, meaning they would create evidence to be used. When a client commits murder, they will look for a victim to act as a scapegoat, starting by collecting anything related to the victim, from household waste to cigarette butts. Then it is placed at the crime scene. They had framed him the same way. Right at this moment, the assassin appeared and launched a fierce attack on Tae-trung. He recognized him as the doctor who used him as a guinea pig in prison. After a fierce battle, Tae-trung managed to take him down. Unexpectedly, the lawyer grabbed a golf club and beat him mercilessly. Tae-trung used a pencil to counterattack, then repeatedly slammed his head onto the table. "You killed my brother, didn't you?" At that moment, the assassin threw a bomb into the room and slammed the door shut. Tae-trung only had enough time to grab the file and jump out the window. He landed on a car below, then endured the pain to stand up and escape. Meanwhile, Johan was practicing swordplay with some martial artists. His swordsmanship was no joke. Furthermore, he was extremely brutal in his attacks. He wouldn't let go even after his opponent fell. A man named Director O called to report the situation. After listening, Johan left immediately. The assassin knew he was about to be silenced as soon as he saw Johan. He immediately drew his knife to face him. But within just 30 seconds, Johan had stabbed him more than 10 times. After delivering the finishing blow, Johan's subordinates continued to stab frantically to vent their anger. Then he called someone to ask for help. Criminal investigator Hwang In-guk was being investigated for taking bribes, but later the charges were dropped. It turned out someone had done this intentionally. In exchange, he had to do something related to number 5283. Outside, a car with license plate 5283 was waiting. Inside the car was the madman An Johan. He promised to help In-guk settle the disciplinary case. In return, In-guk had to track down a person for him. After listening to Tae-trung's story about what he discovered, Uncle Ryong-sik gave him a tearful hug, pitying him for all the injustice and sorrow he had endured. Tae-trung felt truly lucky to have such a good friend as the uncle to lean on. Warden Cho Hwan wanted to interview the surviving prisoners who returned to investigate Tae-trung's disappearance, but the supervisor Kang firmly dismissed it, simply stating that everything was the director's decision. When Cho Hwan went to ask the director, he ordered him not to investigate anything at all, just support In-guk in tracking down Tae-jung. In-guk searched through Tae-jung's prison cell, discovering he was deeply obsessed with the case that put him in jail. Seeing this guy's arrogant attitude, Hwan knew he was up to no good. It turns out Johan's next victim will be So-young, the owner of a small hair salon. She is currently facing financial difficulties and has a young daughter suffering from asthma. Johan is planning to set a trap for So Young without knowing that Tae-jung is also secretly investigating her to catch those who are stalking her. Tae-jung asked Uncle Wrongfully for some components to build a hidden camera. Keep in mind, he had obtained numerous technical certificates while in prison. His electronics skills were even better than Uncle Wrongfully's. One night, Uncle Wrongfully took a stack of cash hidden in a speaker and gave it to Tae-jung. After a brief struggle and some hesitation, Young finally accepted it. When he asked curiously, Uncle Wrongfully explained that he had to hide the money for fear of being robbed. After finishing the miniature camera, Tae-jung installed them around So-jung's house, then used 3 monitors in the shop to watch the surveillance video. Suddenly hearing a strange noise, Tae-jung went out alertly and saw Young-bi, Uncle Wrongfully's daughter, rummaging for the money. Thinking she was a thief, he immediately told her to put the money back. Seeing the thief stubbornly resisting, he pinned her to the ground. Just at that moment, Wrongfully came home and saw his daughter on the ground. While Tae-jung excitedly showed off catching a thief, Uncle Wrongfully introduced the two to each other. However, Eung-bi was rude to her uncle and even refused to admit she was his daughter, leaving Tae-jung completely baffled. She called Tae-jung outside to speak privately. It turned out she was demanding money from him to stay there. Tae-jung obediently took out his money, and she snatched it all away. Before he could recover from the shock, she punched him again. A heavy blow to retaliate for what happened earlier. "Oh my God, you were so cool in prison, Tae-jung." Uncle Wrongfully knew right away that Tae-jung had been beaten and extorted, but he still swore that his daughter was very well-behaved and kind-hearted. Of course, Tae-jung would never believe it. The lawyer Sang-rok died tragically in the explosion, which In-guk claimed Tae-jung was the culprit of. The camera captured a person very similar to Tae-jung near the scene, but Johan still didn't believe he was a murderer. Next, In-guk intended to find Tae-jung's closest cellmate, who is Uncle Wrongfully. After several days of observation, Tae-jung discovered the people stalking So-jung. They always appeared in the same frame as her. A guy on a motorcycle was constantly following So-jung on the road. He was certainly creating fake GPS signal evidence to make it look like she was holding the victim's phone. Tae-jung immediately went to find his old car to prepare for action. Meanwhile, Johan was studying the murder scene. The victim was stabbed in the back with a knife. He intended to replace it with So-jung's hair scissors to frame her for the crime. This was the final step in the plan. Tae-jung sped to So-jung's shop, but only met her young daughter. The girl said her mother went to return a phone a customer had forgotten at the shop. Luckily, So-jung had written down the address she was headed to on a piece of paper. It was the Zichu shopping mall parking lot. Tae-jung immediately got in his car and sped off. Meanwhile, the police officer, In-guk, and Warden Jo-hwan went to Uncle Wrongfully's electrical shop to ask him about Tae-jung's whereabouts. Uncle Wrongfully was naturally gentle and timid. Under his threat, his face showed clear signs of panic. Even though he didn't talk, In-guk still demanded to storm into the inner room to search. Fortunately, as soon as he opened the door, he caught Young-bi changing clothes. The foul-mouthed girl, afraid of no one, rushed out and yelled straight at their faces, asking who they were to dare barge into someone's house. "Get out, you bastards!" Seeing that she was too aggressive, Jo-hwan immediately pulled In-guk outside. Even Uncle Wrongfully was kicked out by Young-bi. Jo-hwan apologized to him and promised it wouldn't happen again, but he told them it was best not to come back anymore. At the same time, the hairdresser So-young went to return the phone according to the instructions from the other end of the line, unaware that every action was being monitored by cameras. Upon arriving at the meeting point, she handed the phone to a girl who claimed to be its owner. Suddenly, a motorcycle sped up and snatched the phone right out of her hand. That rider was none other than Tae-jung. He revved the engine and sped away, leaving the henchman unable to react in time. Johan immediately received the report about the stolen phone. He flew into a rage and smashed a statue revealing the hidden murder weapon. It turned out the phone belonged to a pianist, who was also the murder victim. They intentionally planted it at So-young's shop to frame her, exactly how they had framed Tae-jung before. Tae-jung guessed that they would find a way to get the phone back anyway. That same evening, Tae-jung called back the most recent incoming number, demanding a ransom to return the phone. The woman on the other end was furious, but she still had to agree to pay the money. When she arrived at the meeting point, Tae-jung gave orders over the phone, telling her to give the money to a delivery man, then go to the mailbox at the back of the building to pick up the phone. This phone was too important, so despite her frustration, she had to comply. Once she found the phone, she quickly left in a taxi. Waiting for just that, Tae-jung immediately followed her. Meanwhile, at a warehouse, Johan was furious with his subordinate for losing the phone. That man reported he had already sent someone to ransom it back. Unexpectedly, this made Johan's blood boil even more for daring to act without permission. Before he could justify himself, the Chinese woman stabbed him straight in the skull, killing him instantly. Johan ordered her to go handle something tonight. Tae-jung followed this woman who paid the ransom to a warehouse. He swiftly took down an employee, then put on his uniform to infiltrate the inside. It turned out this warehouse was where they collected, stored, and processed all belongings of the scapegoats. These items would later be used to fabricate fake evidence. Tae-jung immediately pulled out his phone to record everything. While recording smoothly, his phone rang. It was Uncle Wrongfully calling to report that something happened to So-jung, telling him to get there immediately before it was too late. But the ringtone caused Tae-jung to be discovered. The staff immediately rushed to chase him. Tae-jung fought back while running. Finally, he luckily managed to escape. At the same time, the Chinese woman arrived at the hair salon and locked the door. Seeing her pull out a knife, So-jung panicked and pointed at the cash safe. But she nonchalantly sat down and told her to do her hair. So-jung found an excuse to make a phone call, but she used her daughter to threaten her. So-jung tried to use scissors to fight back, but the woman was faster, kicking her down and strangling her. Right at the critical moment, Tae-jung crashed his motorcycle through the door. The Chinese woman immediately lunged forward for a hand-to-hand fight. She struck extremely fast, throwing a knife that hit Tae-jung's thigh. Tae-jung used a tray to smash his opponent, while she grabbed 2 iron bars and beat him relentlessly. Tae-jung took the hits and then threw her aside. Unexpectedly, she grabbed a can of hairspray and sprayed it directly into his eyes, then lunged forward intending to stab him again. Tae-jung, fueled by rage, punched her down to the floor. Just then, police sirens wailed, forcing the Chinese woman to flee immediately. It turned out Uncle Wrongfully had called the police. Johan checked the cameras and realized the intruder in the warehouse was Tae-jung. He wasn't angry, but rather amused, because Tae-jung had taken the initiative to find him. At that moment, Do-gung and his father showed up at Johan's house. It turned out they had learned that the scapegoat for Do-gung had escaped from prison. "Why is my scapegoat roaming free on the streets?" Faced with their aggression, Johan remained calm and said it was no big deal. Do-gung's father reminded him that Johan had accepted a large sum of money, so he must take responsibility, and gave him a 1-week deadline to clean everything up. Do-gung mockingly insulted Johan, calling him nothing more than a servant. Then he bragged that he could personally kill Tae-jung and demanded his money back. Do-gung's father told his son to take temporary refuge abroad until everything blew over. Johan, meanwhile, was extremely frustrated because the one he helped get off the hook was now turning around to bite him back. Just then, a henchman reported that So-jung and her daughter had been taken away by Tae-jung. Seeing both Tae-jung and Do-gung waging war against him, Johan came up with a gift-giving trick, with the goal of letting the two sides take each other out. At this time, Young-bi entered Tae-jung's room and accidentally saw his analysis board and monitoring screens. Just then, Uncle Wrongfully brought So-jung and her daughter home, leaving Young-bi even more confused and completely out of the loop. Tae-jung let So-jung see the documents taken from the Sangrok gang, which contained all of her personal information, including her daughter's asthma condition. Uncle Wrongfully said the two of them needed a safe shelter, but So-jung said she didn't know where to go. They had to find a place that had no connection to her. At those words, both of their eyes simultaneously turned toward Young-bi, so Young-bi brought So-jung and her daughter to her house to stay, using her best friend Sona's room. It turns out she's quite kind-hearted despite having a bit of a foul mouth. Only because of that did Uncle Wrongfully finally learn where his daughter lives. Tae-jung saw Young-bi smoking and snatched the cigarette away, telling her that the little girl has asthma. Young-bi immediately called Tae-jung outside and asked who he really was. "Did you actually kill someone? If you don't answer, I'll kick the mother and daughter out of the house." At this point, Tae-jung had to give in. That night, Young-bi tossed and turned over Tae-jung's answer that people framed him for murder and threw him in prison for life. The foul-mouthed girl suddenly felt he was very pitiable. Young-bi then called her father so he would have her phone number, in case anything happened. Tae-jung wondered, "Why are you so nervous answering your daughter's call, Uncle?" Uncle Wrongfully explained that it was the first time Young-bi had ever called him. He didn't even know his own daughter's phone number before. A heartbreaking past had driven a wedge between them. Just as he arrived home, Tae-jung saw a news report on TV about the murder of a pianist. The police believed the suspect had taken their own life. Immediately after committing the crime, the two of them didn't realize they had just saved So-jung, but Johan had already found someone else to be the scapegoat. At the same time, Johan called the minister who hired him with a triumphant voice. "I told you everything would be taken care of." Meanwhile, Tae-jung, boiling with rage, drove straight to Johan's warehouse, but the place had turned into a massacre site. Everyone was silenced with a spike through the head, including the woman who had ransomed the phone from him earlier. The conveyor belt suddenly brought down a human head holding an envelope. It was the assassin doctor. Tae-jung was still in shock when he saw a pile of stalker photos of himself and So-jung on the table, along with photos of Baek Do-gung and a cash envelope with Park Tae-jung's name on it. Taejung flew into a rage, screaming and throwing the money away. Suddenly, the screen displayed a gift has been sent. The real culprit is Baek Do-gung. Now go find Baek Do-gung, followed by his social media account. It's time to follow the right path. Park Taejung. And that's the end of episode 8. The game has moved to a new stage. And this time, Johan has set the bait for two enemies to tear each other apart. Taejung stood frozen before the large screen in the bloody warehouse. The words, "The gift has arrived," appeared provocatively, accompanied by shocking information. The real culprit of the old case was indeed Baek Do-gung. The final boss, Johan, generously threw in a bonus hint. The Instagram account of Do-gung was switched from private to public. Immediately, Taejung checked Do-gung's story and discovered he was partying and dancing in the port city of Busan. The target is clear. The hunt begins. Meanwhile, in Seoul, the dirty cop Hwang In-guk sought out Taejung's close friends at the auto repair shop, pretending to care and asking if he had made any contact. The honest friends said they still persistently went to the detention center to visit Taejung, but he never agreed to meet them. Despite that, they still wholeheartedly believed in Taejung's innocence and were determined to protect their friend. Seeing that no information could be extracted, In-guk had to leave his business card and depart. Right at that moment, the prison guard Jo Hwan received a call from an unknown number. The person on the other end was Taejung. What would happen if I caught the real killer? Before Jo Hwan could react, a suspicious In-guk snatched the phone away. Seeing this, Taejung immediately hung up. Unfortunately, the speaker announcement from the express bus terminal gave away the fact that Taejung was in Busan. In another development, the mob boss Sung-do was punishing a treacherous underling. Even though the man knelt down and begged piteously, he was ultimately beaten until he was unconscious. It turns out Sung-do is not just a notorious gangster, but also belongs to the same playboy circle as Do-gung. He is trying his best to please Do-gung so that Gung will invest in opening a grand bar with him. At the electronics shop, Uncle Rongshich was extremely anxious because he couldn't contact Taejung. Seeing her father's worry, Eun-bi suggested he go to the detention center to find out what happened. As it turns out, the priest revealed that Taejung had never been brought back there. At this moment, Eun-bi suddenly remembered that Taejung was carrying the phone her father gave him. The quick-witted girl went to a phone shop, reported the device as lost, and asked them to check the GPS location. Thanks to that, the two found out Taejung's location and immediately set off for Busan. But In-guk was no pushover either. He also secretly checked the GPS location of the two phone numbers belonging to Uncle Rongshich and discovered that both were in Busan, so he was incredibly smug, certain that he would definitely capture Taejung this time. Meanwhile, Jo Hwan kept what Taejung had just said a complete secret about him tracking down the real killer. He even received a message from Taejung, sending the address and password for a locker at the Busan bus terminal. Back to the final boss, Johan. He was holding a memorial service with his clan, or his parents, at a temple. However, while everyone else bowed in prayer, he just stood there, cold and emotionless. His uncle, a psychiatrist acting dignified, comforted and encouraged him to let go of the ghosts of the past and not to blame himself for his parents' deaths 15 years ago. After the ceremony, a greedy aunt of Johan's demanded a division of the shares his parents left behind, then insincerely invited him to a family gathering meal. In front of them, Johan remained polite and obedient, but behind their backs, he revealed his true self to his blind nanny. He said bluntly that these family members were just a bunch of hypocrites, no different from venomous snakes waiting to tear him apart. He invited the nanny to eat, but she refused, saying she had private business, and that private business was a horrific massacre. The nanny ordered the Chinese female assassin to wipe out all of Johan's relatives right in the middle of the party. A earth-shattering truth was revealed. This nanny is actually Johan's biological mother. The entire clan despised Johan. Exactly because of that dirty bloodline, the only person he could open up to was the nanny. Because of that one night, he sneaked into her room and poured mercury into her eyes to make her blind, so she could never leave him. Even more horrifying, she felt no resentment, but instead saw it as his way of expressing his intense love for her. Truly perverted both mother and son. As this was being said, Johan's mother personally finished off the greedy aunt. Back in Busan, the young master Do-gung was driving like a madman and almost hit a girl on the street. The girl got angry and started shouting, but little did she know she had encountered a monster. Do-gung got out of the car and without a word began brutally beating her. The mob boss Sung-do had to struggle to intervene and pull him away. This entire scene was being secretly watched by Taejung. He saw both of them board a luxury yacht to continue their partying. Taejung secretly snuck onto the yacht. The moment he confronted Do-gung, he immediately turned on his recorder and started baiting him. He provoked him into talking about the victim Jew, Narang, whom he had murdered years ago. Do-gung, naturally arrogant and high on drugs, didn't hesitate to admit to everything. He laughed and bragged about his feat, claiming that Tae-jung was just a sacrificial pawn. Despite having the evidence in hand, Tae-jung was immediately surrounded. Do-gung ordered his henchmen to ganging up on him. Tae-jung fought back fiercely, taking down the lackeys. Seeing his men were useless, the long-haired Sung-do was forced to step in himself. Living up to his reputation as a boss, he landed vicious blows on Tae-jung, beating him mercilessly until he fell unconscious. In Seoul, the maniac, Johan, looked extremely satisfied hearing news of the tragic accident that had sent all his family elders to their graves. It turned out the nanny had set the scene on fire to destroy evidence, staging everything perfectly as an accident. Just then, Do-gung called to report that he had caught the scapegoat Tae-jung. He was furious and asked why Tae-jung had found him. Johan had to back down and agree to refund Do-gung's money, but inwardly he was deeply disappointed that Tae-jung had lost so easily. He had expected the game to be more interesting than that. Meanwhile, Eunbi and her father arrived at the dock, just as they saw the cop. In-guk mobilizing forces to surround the area and capture Tae-jung. The father and daughter hurried to split up to find Tae-jung faster. On the yacht, Sung-do was partying wildly with the group of rich kids. When he heard the news that the police had arrived, knowing their target was Tae-jung, he immediately stepped in to block them. Despite that, In-guk was determined to catch Tae-jung at all costs, and resolutely ordered his men to charge in for a search. Meanwhile, Do-gung was inviting two girls to kill Tae-jung for fun. The two had no interest in this sick game, and were subsequently beaten mercilessly by him. Just then Sung-do called to report that the police had arrived and warned him not to cause trouble. Uncle Wrongfully was walking around the dock looking for Tae-jung. Suddenly he saw a guard at the yacht, preventing anyone from approaching. Taking advantage of the guard being busy with a drunk girl, the uncle snuck in and rescued Tae-jung. Do-gung crawled to the spot intending to finish off Tae-jung, only to find his prey had disappeared. While Wrongfully was taking Tae-jung into hiding, they ran right into Jo-hwan. The prison guard said he understood Tae-jung's injustice, but that this wasn't the right way to resolve it. Uncle Wrongfully stood up to protect Tae-jung and said bluntly that if Jo-hwan really wanted to help, then he should let them go. But before they could run, the cop In-guk appeared. As he was laughing triumphantly, Eunbi smashed a fire extinguisher onto his head. Wrongfully and Tae-jung took the chance to escape, while Eunbi sprayed the fire extinguisher to stop Jo-hwan from chasing after them. All three quickly jumped into the car and sped away. Eunbi took Tae-jung to her best friend's house for temporary shelter. Watching Tae-jung drift off from exhaustion, her gaze suddenly became unusually tender. Perhaps the rebellious girl had begun to develop a crush on this handsome but unlucky guy. The next morning, Jo-hwan went to the station locker following Tae-jung's instructions. Inside, he found a stack of documents and photos of Do-gung, vital evidence that Tae-jung had gathered. Meanwhile, Do-gung was in a furious rage with Sung-do because he let Tae-jung escape. Sung-do only smirked and firmly promised to find Tae-jung. Do-gung called Johan, suspecting that Johan himself had rescued Tae-jung just to avoid having to refund the money. Johan burst into amused laughter upon hearing this. He realized Tae-jung was no simple target, and this cat-and-mouse game was far from over. Tae-jung returned to Uncle Wrongfully's electronics shop, with eyes burning with fire. Determined, he worked tirelessly creating new toys to prepare for an all-out battle with those bastards. The result was an incredibly cool nail gun, signaling that a bloody revenge was about to begin. Meanwhile, Do-gung intentionally posted a story to lure Tae-jung into a trap. At a high-end restaurant, Johan claimed to be Do-gung's friend to start a conversation with his mother. When the father walked in, Johan casually warned him that the escaped convict was tracking his precious son. Taking that opportunity, he offered his security consulting services, essentially to gain leverage over the entire family. But the veteran Congressman Baek didn't take the bait easily. He coldly replied that Johan was only someone to clean up after everything was done, and this time he would handle it himself immediately. That night, Congressman Beck's answer was delivered. A team of masked assassins silently surrounded Johan's mansion, but they had chosen the wrong prey. Johan drew his sword and stepped into the darkness. In less than 3 beats, each assassin was brutally taken down one by one. Meanwhile, Tae-jung and Uncle Wrongfully were sitting and talking. For the first time, the uncle opened up about his painful past. He told him that when he was young, he was a heavy drinker. That day, he came home drunk and argued with his wife. In a fit of rage, he threw a cigarette on the floor and left. When he returned, the house was engulfed in a sea of flames. What haunted him for the rest of his life wasn't the fire, but his own cowardice, the moment he felt fear, and hesitated, not daring to rush in to save his wife. For all these years, he has always been tormented by guilt, confessing that he was the one who killed his wife. Tae-jung asserted that ever since he met the uncle had never been a hesitant person. Johan called Detective In-guk, but only asked casually as if he didn't care at all. In truth, What concerned him more now was the strange relationship between Taejung and Rongshich's family. He didn't understand why Eunbi would help a father who had indirectly caused her mother's death, and why both of them were risking their lives for Taejung. Those questions drove his curiosity insane. While Taejung was checking the homemade nail gun, Eunbi walked in to remind him to have breakfast. Seeing this, Eunbi's friend teased her that she had already fallen for Taejung. "You said it yourself, being near him makes your heart ache, like you're about to faint, right?" Embarrassed, Eunbi made an excuse to buy cigarettes to slip away. When she arrived at the convenience store, she ran into In-guk by chance. Hearing him say they had tracked Taejung's phone signal, Eunbi left all her paid items behind to escape. Unexpectedly, he called her back. Luckily, he hadn't recognized her yet, only asking if she had seen anyone like the person in the photo. Eunbi answered briefly and sped away immediately. But not long after, In-guk recognized the tattoo on Eunbi's back, identical to the tattoo of Rongshich's daughter, and immediately ordered a pursuit. Eunbi accelerated to escape, daringly driving onto the sidewalk to lose the police cars. Finally safe, she went back to alert Taejung and her father. When the police stormed in, Eunbi and her father already had the engine running and sped away to create a diversion. This cleared a path for Taejung to escape on a motorcycle. The police frantically chased Rongshich's car, but when they stopped it for inspection, Taejung was nowhere to be found. Eunbi nonchalantly poured windshield washer fluid, while Uncle Rongshich acted dramatically to provoke In-guk, making him boil with rage without being able to do anything. When questioned by Warden Jo Hwan, the uncle asked back, "Which Mr. Taejung are you looking for? The ruthless murderer who escaped prison, or the man wrongly convicted, who is trying to find a way to clear his name? If it were the murderer Taejung, I wouldn't say a word." Taejung escaped the police blockade, but a true threat was about to strike. When Uncle Rongshich and Eunbi arrived home, they found her friend knocked unconscious by Johan. He mockingly asked them how much Taejung was paying for them to risk their lives like that. Receiving no answer, he immediately reopened the family's old wound. He sarcastically brought up the uncle killing his wife right in front of Eunbi. Infuriated, Eunbi lunged to attack him. Despite her strength, she was still no match for a professional assassin. Uncle Rongshich rushed in to protect his daughter, but was also brutally beaten by Johan. Only after satisfying himself with the beating did Johan coldly walk away. Meanwhile, Taejung received a challenge from Do-gung for a final showdown at 9 p.m. tonight. Right on time, Taejung sped to the meeting point where Baek, Do-gung, and the long-haired Sung-du's henchmen were waiting. Taejung gave Do-gung a chance to pay for his crimes, but he shamelessly blamed everything on Johan and shirked all responsibility. Without another word, Taejung drew his nail gun, intending to finish him off. But Sung-du's men rushed in to stop him. Alone and surrounded, Taejung engaged in close combat while firing nails at Do-gung. But then the gun ran out of ammo. Seizing the moment, Sung-du charged in to fight, clearing a path for Do-gung to flee. This long-haired guy was too strong, landing several hits on Taejung. Luckily, he kicked a wooden crate and got his foot stuck. Taejung seized the chance to counterattack and knock him out. Finally, he picked up the man's gun and hurriedly chased after Do-gung. As soon as he saw Taejung, Do-gung panicked and jumped into his car to escape. Taejung immediately hopped on his motorcycle to pursue, while Sung-du and his men also trailed closely behind. Do-gung raced into the tunnel at breakneck speed, but Taejung was an equally skilled rider. Both frantically weaved through other vehicles. Sung-du's henchmen opened fire, but Taejung leaned his body to the side to dodge the bullets. Once they ran out of ammo, he revved the engine and sped off. Eventually, he caught up to and overtook Do-gung's car. Unexpectedly, Do-gung accelerated, intending to ram straight into him. He immediately revved the engine and rode up the tunnel wall, riding parallel before firing a shot as a warning. At that moment, Sung-du's gang caught up, but before they could act, Taejung accelerated and lunged into their car, taking down each man one by one. Sung-du had just pulled his gun but was shot in the head before he could fire. Taejung continued by neutralizing the driver to seize the vehicle and chased after Do-gung. The two sides engaged in a fierce shootout without a clear winner. Suddenly, Taejung backed up and rammed straight into Do-gung's car, pushing it forward relentlessly. Just as they exited the tunnel, a truck lunged from the opposite direction. Taejung swerved to avoid it, while Do-gung's car took the full force of the horrific collision. Seeing that he wasn't dead yet, Taejung dragged him out of the car and turned on a recorder, forcing him to confess. But Do-gung took his last breath before he could say anything. At that exact moment, his phone rang. Johan was highly amused that Taejung had found his gift in the form of Do-gung. Only then did Taejung realize that Johan was the one who framed him for the crimes. He proposed a deal to him. He would give Taejung 5 billion won, clear his criminal record, and restore his honor. In return, Taejung had to work for him. "The only reason I'm making this offer to you is because I truly like you," but Taejung flatly refused. Can you turn back time? Can you bring my younger brother back to life? He declared he would drag him to hell to make him pay for every crime he committed. Johan only smirked, noting that the next time they met, it wouldn't be just empty words anymore. Shortly after, Johan went to a house and killed Congressman Beck, Dogung's father, along with his mistress. Before delivering the final blow, he revealed a shocking secret. At the age of 56, he had killed both his father and mother, simply because they intended to donate all their assets to a temple instead of leaving them to him. He had stabbed them a total of 130 times, stabbing in a state of frenzy, then framing a prison escapee who was hiding nearby, who was subsequently shot dead by the police, helping Johan make a spectacular escape from justice. From then on, he came up with the idea of making money from similar cases. After finishing the story, Johan coldly finished off Congressman Beck. Immediately after the scene cleanup crew arrived, a few days later, Johan went to Uncle Wrongfully's house. He took delight in burning the photo of the uncle and his daughter, curious about what Tae-jung would do next in this life-and-death chess game. Uncle Wrongfully and Eunbi were planning to return to Seoul, but the vile In-guk led the police to storm in and arrest the uncle, naming him a suspect in Congressman Beck's murder. At the bus station, Tae-jung was shocked to hear the news of the uncle's arrest. Uncle Wrongfully desperately pleaded his innocence, but the police insisted that he had threatened and blackmailed Congressman Beck. Just like when Tae-jung was framed, all evidence was stacked against him. The type of paper used for the threatening letter, along with the victim's DNA, was found in the uncle's house, while the uncle's DNA was found at the crime scene. The public defender assigned to him also quickly gave up. The uncle knew he was being framed, only worrying that Eunbi would be in danger alone at home. In-guk threatened to arrest Eunbi as an accomplice, sending Uncle Wrongfully into a rage. Waiting for exactly that, he proposed that if the uncle confessed, he would let Eunbi go. Tae-jung returned to the electronics shop to find Eunbi, but she wasn't there. Suddenly, he noticed a surveillance camera, placed extremely conspicuously. It was clear that Johan was intentionally taunting him. Just then, he heard a noise outside. It turned out to be Eunbi, trying to wipe off the word murderer, scrawled on the glass door. Eunbi was sobbing, because her father was falsely accused, fearing he would be imprisoned once again. Tae-jung told her it was all his fault, and that he would definitely find a way. This was Johan's 100th macabre statue, meaning he had framed, wrongfully accusing a total of 100 innocent people. It turned out that he was also Aixley, the creator of these statues. The nanny suggested organizing a special auction so the world would know the true identity of the artist, the greatest ever known. Johan agreed that it was time to step out of the shadows. He revealed that he enjoyed the auction game simply because he wanted to see the look of panic and despair on the faces of those who needed him. Tae-jung called Johan, demanding that he leave Uncle Wrongfully and his daughter alone. Johan said it was all because of him, and agreed to give him a chance to make amends. He forced him to return to the tunnel and open the emergency telephone box. Inside was the knife that killed Congressman Beck. He had two choices. One was to take the knife, confess, and return to prison. Two was to write the amount of money he wanted on a blank check there. Perhaps he wanted to turn Tae-jung into a scoundrel, willing to trample on others for his own survival. In the detention center, Uncle Wrongfully missed and worried about his daughter Eunbi. In the past, the father and daughter had been very close. After the uncle was wrongfully imprisoned for arson and the murder of his wife, Bai still visited him frequently. However, seeing the scratches on Eunbi's face, the uncle knew the little girl was often teased and bullied by her friends because of her criminal father. Worried about his daughter's future, he had to heart-wrenchingly tell her to stop visiting him. Forget about my existence. If anyone asks, don't say that I am your father. From now on, you no longer have a father. It turned out that was why Eunbi began to resent him. On the day he finished his sentence and returned, Eunbi immediately moved out to avoid living with him. To act even more heartless, she even forced her father to pay monthly rent. The other day, the uncle overheard her best friend asking why Eunbi treated her father so badly, even though she used to say she missed him very much when he was in prison. Now the uncle realized that Eunbi only acted angry on the outside, while deep down she still loved him very much. The next day, Eunbi requested to visit Uncle Wrongfully. As soon as they met, she kept asking if her father had been mistreated. The uncle told her that no matter what happens in the future, Eunbi must stay away and not worry about him. He even revealed the place where he had hidden his savings. Hearing him give instructions as if he were going away forever, Eunbi was extremely worried but didn't know what to do. Immediately after that, Uncle Wrongfully confessed to the crime. Cha-hwan saw the news on TV and immediately went to find the cop In-guk, demanding to see the interrogation of Uncle Wrongfully. With his experience dealing with countless prisoners, he asserted that the uncle was not the killer. He was only trying to take the blame to protect his loved ones, so a more thorough investigation was needed. Of course, In-guk ignored his request, and mocked him as just a useless prison guard. That night, Tae-jung appeared at the police station with the murder weapon in his hand and confessed to killing Congressman Beck. Uncle Wrongfully was stunned to see Tae-jung being arrested. In his place, Eun-bi burst into tears when she saw her father return home, but she was still angry at him for confessing to something he didn't do. Uncle Wrongfully only apologized and hugged his daughter tight, promising never to leave her side again. That night, In-guk brought Johan into the police station and cleared everyone out. The madman. Johan wondered why Tae-jung chose such a self-destructive path, when Uncle Wrongfully would have surely been convicted. Tae-jung didn't bother to answer, which drove him insane with anger. Before he had wondered who this man was, and why he did such terrible things to him. But looking at him now, he realized he was nothing more than a child. Hearing that Johan left in a fit of humiliated rage, he called the prison director only to find out that Tae-jung was already serving a life sentence. Since Korean law does not have the death penalty, adding another murder charge didn't really make much of a difference. He then ordered the old man to secretly kill Tae-jung inside the prison. The next day, Cha-hwan personally came to take Tae-jung back to the prison. In-guk demanded to keep him for further interrogation, but Cha-hwan insisted that this was the standard procedure. On the way, Cha-hwan asked why Tae-jung had given him the items from the locker. Tae-jung replied that they were the keys to the truth, and you are the only person in the prison that I feel I can trust. Cha-hwan asked, does confessing mean you've given up? Tae-jung said he didn't regret confessing to save Uncle Wrongfully. When the car stopped at a rest area for the driver to use the restroom, Cha-hwan immediately hopped into the driver's seat and sped away. He drove to a remote area and uncuffed Tae-jung. Just run straight ahead, there's a car waiting for you. I really wanted to do more for you, but I don't have the power. I'm just a prison guard. As it turned out, after obtaining the evidence Tae-jung left in the locker, including the recorded confession of the lawyer Sang-rak, Cha-hwan was completely convinced that Tae-jung had been wrongfully imprisoned. Later, he also happened to overhear the director promising Johan that he would find a way to kill Tae-jung in prison. That was why he risked everything to release Tae-jung today, even knowing he would be in deep trouble. Tae-jung ran forward as Cha-hwan had instructed, and sure enough, there was a car waiting. Inside were none other than Uncle Wrongfully and his daughter. The three of them immediately got in and drove off. Cha-hwan drove back to the prison alone, burst into the director's office and locked the door. The director was furious and threatened to discipline him, only to be punched in the face. Go ahead and discipline me. I've already called the inspectorate, and I'm going to tell them everything. Tae-jung took Eun-bi and her father to stay, temporarily at his mother's old house for safety. Meanwhile, the prison director informed Johan that Tae-jung had checked out on his own. Apparently, this was Officer Hwan's tactic to help Tae-jung. However, Johan noticed that the director's voice sounded unusual, and easily guessed that Tae-jung had escaped. On the other side, Tae-jung and Eun-bi's family were investigating on Johan. The sculptures being auctioned were actually tools for money laundering and covering up crimes. The murder cases all occurred within 10 days after the auction, and the police caught the culprits in just 1 week, exactly following the script that happened to Tae-jung. Uncle Wrongfully and Eun-bi were deeply resentful and told Tae-jung to crush that bastard Johan. Prison guard Cha-hwan had just finished organizing the evidence of the director's guilt when officials from the inspectorate office stormed in. Unexpectedly, he was the one who got arrested, on charges of taking bribes from prisoners. It was clear that Johan had intervened. The next day, the exhibition of the mysterious artist basically took place on a grand scale. The number of visitors and bidders was unprecedented. Johan's 100th masterpiece had a starting price of 6.1 billion won. The price was pushed up continuously from 6.4 billion to 7 billion, then 8 billion. At this point, only Johan's nanny and a mysterious guest in a private room were in a fierce bidding war. Finally, the closing price was a record-breaking 60 billion won, belonging to the guest in the private room. After closing the deal, Johan didn't bother to announce his true identity, but went straight to the room of the generous guest, who had spent that 10 billion won. To his surprise, it was his old acquaintance Do-gung. Immediately after, the police raided and arrested Johan on charges of murder, aiding in murder and destroying evidence. It turned out that Tae-jung had persuaded Do-gung to join hands with him to take down their common enemy Johan. Despite being arrested, Johan remained calm, merely instructing his nanny to call someone. The very next day, the scarred man in prison received his assignment. Meanwhile, Tae-jung assessed that the statue buyers were all powerful figures. They would soon pull strings to get Johan released. They had to obtain all the evidence to truly bring him down, and today was their only chance. Do-gung submitted evidence of Johan's crimes to the police, even though he himself would be prosecuted. He no longer cared about anything else, but only wanted that bastard Johan to pay for what he had done. Immediately after, a convoy of trucks from the exhibition center lined up to transport Johan's statues to his house. Suddenly, a car stalled in the middle of the road, blocking the truck at the end of the convoy. As it turned out, Tae-jung's friends had helped him, creating an opportunity for him to drive an identical truck and blend into the convoy. Tae-jung told Eunbi to hurry home and protect her father, because it was very likely that she and her father would be Johan's next targets. At 8 p.m., Johan was taken to his cell, but just a few minutes later, a mob of thugs stormed the police station and stabbed all the staff. The dirty cop In-guk ran to Johan for help, but Johan didn't say a word, leaving him to be stabbed on the spot by the scarred man. Within minutes, the entire police station was in ruins. No one was left alive. The scarred man said Johan just needed to claim he saw intruders and fled in fear to get away with it. In exchange, he only wanted to know where Tae-jung was to settle an old score. Leaving the police station, Johan sent the Chinese woman to deal with Eunbi and her father, while he drove like a madman to the hospital to finish off Do-gung. At the same time, Tae-jung had disguised himself as a mover to enter Johan's villa. Just as Tae-jung had warned, when Eunbi got home, she saw her father being stabbed in the chest by the Chinese woman. She risked her life to jump in and struggle with her to save her father. But clearly, she was no match for a professional assassin like her. Uncle Wrongfully used his last bit of strength to hold her back for Eunbi to escape, but Eunbi wouldn't leave him. She rode her motorcycle into the woman, then picked up a knife and stabbed her. But when she ran to check on her father, the woman held a knife to her throat. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Do-gung had been strangled to death by Johan. Tae-jung was about to break into the secret room of. As for Johan, he made a provocative call, inviting him to his home to end all their grievances. Knowing that Tae-jung had arrived, he immediately rushed home at breakneck speed. Tae-jung found the hard drive in Johan's computer, but as soon as he pulled it out, the alarm system went off. Tae-jung quickly dashed out of the room before the automatic doors could shut. He used a nail gun to break the lock and escape outside. To his surprise, the scarred man, Doksu, had been waiting there all along. Immediately, his henchmen stormed in. Tae-jung used the nail gun to take down each one of them. After the henchmen were eliminated, the scarred Doksu finally charged in with a crossbow. Both were hit by each other's projectiles before engaging in hand-to-hand combat. After a brutal 300-round battle, Tae-jung finally managed to defeat him. Just then, Johan arrived. He calmly sipped his wine and mocked Tae-jung, saying that the hard drives in his hand were set to self-destruct, and all the real evidence was inside the sword in his hand. It turned out he had anticipated that Tae-jung would break in here to find evidence. Just as Tae-jung was about to fight him to the death, the Chinese woman walked in leading Eunbi. Johan forced Tae-jung to kill the scarred man, but he dropped the knife and demanded Eunbi's release. Johan mocked him for being incapable of being a villain, then drew his sword and killed the scarred man on the spot. The next second, he suddenly swung his sword, slashing Tae-jung's thigh, revealing that after killing him, he would frame Eunbi. Suddenly, Tae-jung picked up the knife, and Eunbi seized the moment to break free. Tae-jung immediately lunged forward and took down the Chinese woman. Johan frantically swung his sword, hacking at Tae-jung like chopping wood. Finally, Tae-jung knocked the sword out of his hand and pummeled him relentlessly. Johan took a severe beating but continued to laugh insanely. He played back the footage, forcing Tae-jung to witness firsthand the scene of his younger brother being brutally murdered. Seeing Tae-jung's agony, he laughed with even more delight. In a moment of ultimate fury, Tae-jung stabbed him through the shoulder, pinning him to the screen, but he did not finish him off. Instead, he just took the hard drive containing the evidence and left. Johan screamed frantically, egging Tae-jung on, urging him to kill him. But he knew that killing him would only turn himself into a monster. Live on and pay for everything you've done. With that, he punched him unconscious. Unexpectedly, after he left, a fire broke out at his house. The next day, the news reported that An Johan had died in a fire at his private residence. His crimes were brought to light, thanks to an anonymous informant, and the confession of the prison director. Uncle Wrongfully luckily survived. A retrial was opened, and with all the evidence provided, the court declared Tae-jung innocent. The sound of the judge's gavel felt like a 1,000-pound weight being lifted off the shoulders of a man who had suffered so much injustice. The day he visited his mother and brother's columbarium, a white butterfly kept circling him without leaving. 6 months passed and life returned to peace. Tae-jung was about to reopen his plant cafe. Eunbi and her father, along with his close friends, were still by his side, helping him with the preparations. Warden Jo Hwan also paid a visit, bringing a potted plant as a grand opening gift. In the evening, after a hard day's work, everyone gathered together for a happy meal. The storms had passed, and now was the time for Tae-jung to enjoy the life he truly deserved. A warm ending for people who had gone through so much pain and loss. Somewhere out there, it seemed the madman An Johan was still alive. But looking closely, this person had side-parted hair, while Johan had a buzz cut. This ending clearly paves the way for Season 2. Is Johan still alive? Or has a new enemy for Taejong appeared? Is anyone looking forward to Season 2? Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this, please give us a like, share, or comment. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified for the next video. We really need your support. See you all in the next videos.